It was during my last year of college when I first met Lauren. She was out celebrating her 21st birthday at a downtown Nashville club, and I, being the clumsy guy I sometimes am, literally walked right into her table. Her drink ended up all over her lap, and I was mortified. I apologized a dozen times while helping her clean up, and as we talked through the awkwardness, something about her just stuck with me. I don't usually believe in love at first sight, but that night, it honestly felt like something magnetic pulled us together. From that moment on, we started dating, and we never looked back. Within a year, we were married, ready to build a life together. I'm Jonathan, but everyone just calls me Johnny. After earning my accounting degree, I became a CPA and joined a big firm down in Atlanta. Lauren and I eventually settled nearby to be close to family. After a few years in the corporate world, I took a leap and opened my own firm. Lauren, who had a degree in business administration, stood by my side and helped out during those early years. Then came the happiest news of all: we were going to have a daughter. We named her Ava. Our life felt like something out of a storybook. Our love was steady and real, and once Ava came into the world, that love only deepened. Over the next decade, we fell into a comfortable routine. I focused on growing the business while Lauren managed the home and raised Ava. Everything just fit. Even in the bedroom, we had a connection I'd call nothing short of beautiful. We kept things simple, not wild or experimental, but deeply intimate and satisfying. We were together at least 3 times a week, and that rhythm worked perfectly for us. Lauren enjoyed certain things, like oral pleasure, which she reserved for special moments, and I never pushed for more. I respected her boundaries because what we had felt so complete already. Lauren was always affectionate. She never stopped showing me love. Hugs, kisses, the way she'd grab my hand while we watched TV or brush her fingers against my back in passing, it all meant the world to me. Her love was constant, and that consistency was the most beautiful part of our marriage. Even our friends, who'd once said our relationship wouldn't last, came to realize we had something rare. When Ava turned 10, Lauren told me she was ready to go back to work. With Ava now in a set routine and getting home from school at 3:30 p.m., Lauren didn't want to spend her days just sitting around the house. We talked it over, a lot, and came up with a plan that would still keep Ava's needs first. Lauren landed a job as a personal assistant to a lawyer named Mark. He was about 10 years older than her, but the hours were great. She was always home by 4, just in time to welcome Ava back from school. We were thriving, living in a nice apartment in an upscale neighborhood, with a country club membership and money saved for Ava's college. We had no health issues, no financial problems, just a solid, happy life. Naturally, after a decade of marriage, our sex life slowed down a bit. What used to be 3 or 4 times a week became more like twice, usually on Fridays and Saturdays. Sure, it wasn't as spontaneous as it used to be, but the love was still there. The connection hadn't faded. Lauren stayed just as affectionate as ever. Random kisses. Unexpected hugs. Those little reassurances of love. That meant more to me than anything else. And I made sure to return the favor. She always knew just how deeply I loved her. By the time Ava joined the math club in high school and started getting home around 5, Lauren also began working late 2 nights a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, the same nights Ava had after-school activities. We didn't want Ava to be alone, so we kept our schedules aligned. Mark, her boss, had recently been promoted to senior partner at his father-in-law's law firm. That meant Lauren occasionally stayed a bit later to help out. On those evenings, I made sure dinner was ready when she got home. Other than that, nothing really changed between us. Business was booming on my end. I now had 45 employees and a respected reputation across Atlanta. We were doing so well, bigger firms were even starting to show interest in acquiring us. At 15, Ava was starting to think about college. Lauren was still working with Mark, and honestly, she looked just as amazing as the day we met. Time had been kind to her. She kept her slim figure, long legs, and that graceful way of carrying herself. Even though she was beautiful, she always presented herself in a classy, professional way. Some might have said our life was boring, but it was ours. We spent most of our time at home, going to the movies, or attending family events with Ava. We were always together, never going out separately, never choosing to spend time apart. Looking back, it really did feel like we had it all. About a month before everything came crashing down, I got a call from Mark, Lauren's boss. He told me they were planning to give Lauren an award at an upcoming company banquet, and both Ava and I were invited. I felt a wave of pride wash over me as I thanked him and said we'd be there. The only catch? It had to stay a secret. The award was meant to be a surprise, and usually, these events were just for employees. But they wanted her family there to witness it. I shared the news with Ava, and she lit up with excitement. Her mom was being recognized for her hard work and excellence, something she totally deserved. In the 5 years since Lauren started working with Mark, she'd really come into her own. Her confidence at home had grown, and so had her happiness. I always knew she was great at what she did, but hearing it from someone else, that the company valued her enough to honor her publicly, meant everything. A week later, Lauren told us she'd be working late for a big company presentation at the Ritz-Carlton downtown. She was leading a segment in front of the entire firm and had spent weeks preparing for it. She was nervous, sure, but also genuinely excited. What she didn't know was that Ava and I would be there, front and center, watching her shine. The night of the event, I took Ava out to get a new dress. I even bought myself a fresh suit. We wanted Lauren to be proud of her little family when she saw us sitting there. When the limo pulled up to take her to the venue, she looked incredible. Her dress hit just above the knees, tasteful but still flattering. There was a small cutout in the back that showed off her figure in a classy way. At 37, she still turned heads. Before she left, Ava and I gave her big hugs and wished her luck. We had about 2 hours to get ready after that, and we made sure to be out the door in time to arrive about 30 minutes before her presentation started. As we walked into the grand ballroom, one of the hosts greeted us and led us to a prime table right in the middle with a perfect view of the stage. Everyone was warm and welcoming. Several people stopped by just to tell us how much they adored Lauren. It felt amazing to be part of that, to be her family. When the lights dimmed and the presentation began, the CEO, the founder of the firm, and finally Mark each took the stage. Mark spoke about the company's recent success and thanked the team. Then he introduced Lauren, noting her role in the past year's key achievements. She walked on stage looking every bit the part, confident, beautiful, and so poised. Ava and I couldn't stop smiling as we watched her speak. Her voice was calm and polished, and for about 10 minutes, she talked through the company's wins and upcoming projects. When she wrapped up, she handed the mic back to Mark. That's when things shifted. Mark called her back up and started talking about how close they'd worked together over the past 5 years, how instrumental she'd been in helping the company grow. Then, right there in front of everyone, he presented Lauren with the Chairman's Club Award, the highest honor the company gives out. It came with a large plaque and a check for $10,000. Lauren's eyes filled with tears as she accepted it. She hugged Mark, thanked the crowd, and then looked directly at Ava and me. We were both crying, full of pride. People at our table came over to hug her and shake our hands. It was, without a doubt, one of the happiest nights of our lives. After the ceremony wrapped up and the lights came back on, Ava asked for a drink. I offered to go grab something and told her I'd be right back. I made my way to the bar, and while the lines were long, I spotted a short one off to the side near the stage. I ordered a double jack for myself and a Sprite for Ava, dropped a 5 into the tip jar, and turned to head back. That's when it happened. As I walked past the curtains near the edge of the stage, something caught my eye. Behind the drapes, half hidden from view, I saw a couple locked in what looked like a pretty intimate embrace. At first, I thought it was just out of place, maybe two coworkers getting a little too caught up in the moment. Then I recognized the dress. It was Lauren's. I froze. Just stood there, completely still, 2 drinks in my hands and my heart pounding out of my chest. I watched as the man leaned in and kissed her, not a quick peck, but a long, familiar kiss. And the way they held each other, it wasn't just physical. It was emotional. Intimate. Like they'd done it before. Like this was routine. It didn't feel real. It was like I was watching it all happen from outside my body. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Eventually, they pulled apart. That's when I saw his face clearly. Mark, her boss, and Lauren, the love of my life, looked straight at me. Our eyes met. She froze. The smile on her face vanished. Her expression twisted into pure shock, and all I could do was stand there, my mouth open, my heart breaking. One of the drinks slipped from my hand and hit the floor with a dull thud. And just like that, everything shattered. I walked back to our table with the drink I managed to hang on to. Lauren caught up to me quickly, trying to explain what I'd just seen, but I was barely listening. I nodded numbly, still in a daze, and sat down quietly. My face must have said it all. I didn't smile, didn't speak, just stared straight ahead, wounded and detached. I'd seen more than just a friendly hug or a congratulatory kiss. What I saw between Lauren and Mark was intimate, too intimate. The kind of kiss we hadn't shared in years. Not since before Ava was 5. That realization cut deep. As I sat there, trying to process it, I started replaying the last few years in my head, all the little moments that suddenly took on a different meaning. Something was wrong. And I knew, even if I didn't yet understand the full extent of it. On the drive home, Ava chatted excitedly about the evening. She was proud of her mom, full of admiration. Lauren joined in, trying to keep the conversation light. I stayed quiet. Completely lost in my own head. Both of them noticed, and Ava, sweet as she is, tried to get me to talk, to share in the excitement. But I couldn't fake it. Lauren, sensing my mood, reached out with little touches and soft words, trying to smooth things over with affection, like that would make it better. I wasn't having it. Later that night, I did my best to hide the storm inside me from Ava. She hugged me before bed, looked me in the eyes, and told me she was there if I wanted to talk. Then she went to her room. I stayed back, drowning in my thoughts. Lauren came into the bedroom not long after. She sat on the edge of the bed and asked if I was okay. Her voice was soft, her concern believable, maybe even genuine. But I couldn't meet her eyes. I just turned my back and apologized, not for what I had seen, but for what I was about to become. She pleaded with me to talk, to say anything, but I had nothing to give. My initial shock had curdled into a bitter kind of anger, and I knew if I spoke, I'd say something I couldn't take back. That night, I lay awake beside her, numb. Her attempts to touch me, to comfort me, went unanswered. I stared at the ceiling in silence and felt like I was falling through a void. I don't remember sleeping at all. The next morning, a Saturday, sunlight spilled into the room as I blinked my eyes open. I already knew it was going to be a brutal day. That image of them kissing was burned into my memory, and every time I blinked, I saw it again. I got up, walked to the bathroom, and brushed my teeth like I was on autopilot. When I came back into the bedroom, Lauren was sitting up, watching me, trying to act like things were normal. "Good morning, sweetheart. Did you sleep okay?" she asked. I didn't answer. I just pulled on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. Then, as I was about to leave the room, I turned and looked at her for the first time since it happened. "How long?" I asked, my voice cold. She didn't respond. Just stared down at her hands. Without another word, I walked out, grabbed my keys, and headed to get some breakfast, mostly just to be alone, to try and think through what the hell was happening. I knew she was going to have to tell me eventually. And I dreaded every word I expected to hear. There was no point pretending things could go back to how they were. Not after that. But still, a part of me couldn't believe it. We'd been so close. Lauren had always shown me love, kisses, hugs, the way she'd look at me. How could she fake all of that if she was seeing another man? And not just any man, Mark, her boss. The guy I'd shaken hands with. The guy who smiled at me like nothing was out of place. Could she really do this? Had she been doing it all along? Later that afternoon, I knew Ava had her math club at school by 1. I drove back home around noon, knowing it was time to face whatever this was. I found Lauren sitting on the patio, a cup of coffee in her hands, staring out at the lake. She looked like she hadn't moved in hours. I poured myself a cup and sat down beside her. After a few seconds of silence, I asked again, softly this time. How long? She didn't look at me, just stared into the distance. Then, after a minute or two, I saw the tears forming. 3 years? She whispered. Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. I asked again, needing to hear it clearly. 3 years? I repeated. She nodded slowly. Since those nights, the ones you worked late. Everything clicked into place. I sat there frozen, trying to do the math in my head. 2 nights a week. For 3 years. Is that the only time it happened? I asked quietly. Yes, she said, still crying. Only those nights. Nowhere else. I promise. She started to say more, something about explanations, about wanting to talk, but I held up a hand. Don't, I said. Not now. The damage was done. 2 nights a week. 3 years. Over 300 times if I did the math. That was the real number I was left with, not how many years we'd been married, not how many memories we'd shared. 300 moments she gave to someone else. I finally confronted Lauren that afternoon, and I didn't hold back. I laid it all out, told her that what she'd done wasn't just a one-time betrayal. It wasn't a mistake. It was over 500 acts of deceit. 500 times. I looked her in the eyes and asked her, what man is supposed to carry that kind of weight and still breathe? She didn't say a word, just sat there on the patio, crying, tears dripping off her chin and soaking into her lap. But I wasn't done. I kept going, unleashing everything I'd been bottling up. I talked about the shame, the gut-wrenching humiliation. The thought of them, her and Mark, sharing laughs at my expense, maybe even mocking how clueless I'd been, it made me sick. I thanked her sarcastically for turning our marriage into a joke. For showing me that the person I trusted most could twist a knife right into my chest and smile while doing it. She tried to say it wasn't what it looked like. But I didn't believe a word. I cut her off, told her to stop talking. I didn't want to hear her excuses, not now, maybe not ever. I stood up and walked away, leaving her there on the patio, sobbing and begging me to stay. Outwardly, I looked calm. But inside, it felt like something had ruptured. I needed air. I needed distance. I needed to not see her face for a while if I was going to keep from losing it completely. So I got in my car and drove. I didn't have a destination in mind, just needed to move. The betrayal burned in my chest, a new kind of pain I had no roadmap for. I'd never felt anything like it. And I didn't know what to do, but I knew I needed to talk to someone who wouldn't feed me bullshit. The only person I could think of was my brother, Tony. Tony and I had grown up tight, even if life had pulled us in different directions. He'd done 5 years in federal prison for selling prescription meds, and the crowd he ran with back then wasn't exactly law-abiding. Meanwhile, I was the straight arrow, accountant, churchgoer, never so much as a parking ticket. But even after everything, we'd stayed in touch. I'd helped him during his trial, used a few political connections to shave his sentence from 20 years down to 5. So that morning I called him. He picked up, surprised but happy to hear from me. We caught up for a few minutes before I dropped it on him. Lauren's been cheating on me, I said flatly. There was a pause on the other end. Then, damn, Johnny. Are you serious? You okay? No, I admitted. I'm not. I'm just driving around, trying to think. I didn't know who else to call. I'm sorry to dump this on you. Don't be, he said. You know I got your back. Do you know who it was? I nodded, though he couldn't see me. Yeah. Her boss. Mark. Tony let out a low whistle. And it's not a one-time thing? No, I said. 3 years. Every Tuesday and Thursday night when she said she was working late. I can't wrap my head around it, man. Part of me wants to destroy that guy. Part of me doesn't know what I'd do if I stayed in the same room with Lauren. Tony was quiet for a beat, then gave me the kind of advice only he could. Look, you gotta calm down. Hit the gym. Go for a run. Do something to burn that rage off. And keep your head clear. If you want payback, real payback, it's gotta be smart. You hear me? I nodded again. He continued, gather info. Find out every detail. Then you decide your move. But don't let her see you spiral. Keep it cool, act normal, even if it kills you. Call me tomorrow with whatever you've figured out. I'm here, Johnny. Whatever you need. I thanked him. Said I'd call the next day. And I meant it. While I was driving, I passed a mattress store. That's when the first real idea struck me. I wasn't going to leave the house, not until Ava left for college. That was still 2 years away. But there was no chance I'd ever sleep with Lauren again. And hell if I was going to give up my bedroom. That meant she had to go. So I parked and walked in. I picked out 2 full-size beds, complete with new headboards and frames. I told the salesperson I'd pay full price if they could deliver everything, and dismantle the king-size bed currently in my room, that same day. I threw in an extra $100 to make sure it got done right. Delivery was set for 4 p.m. With that handled, I texted Ava and told her I'd pick her up from school. She hopped in the car, and we grabbed lunch together. I kept things gentle, but I told her that some changes were going to be happening at home. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, Dad, something happened at dinner last night, didn't it? I could tell. Don't keep me in the dark. We've always been honest with each other. And she was right. We had. Even when it was hard. I looked at her, swallowed my pride, and said, Yeah, baby. You deserve to know the truth. I told Ava the truth. I started gently, explaining that I'd seen her mom and Mark kissing backstage. I tried to make it sound less terrible than it was, said maybe it was just a congratulatory moment, something not worth getting too upset over. But even as I said it, I think she knew I was holding back. Then I told her the rest. I said I'd confronted her mom and that Lauren had admitted to having an affair with her boss. For 3 years. That part was hard for her to hear. Hell, it was hard for me to say. I told her this changes things. That it changes how I see Lauren. How I feel. Ava's voice was trembling when she asked, Are you going to divorce Mom? I didn't have an answer ready. I don't know yet, I admitted. I haven't made any final decisions. I'm still trying to make sense of all this. I promised her that, for now, we were still a family. That we'd stay married, at least while we figured things out. I told her it was okay to be confused, to be upset, but I begged her not to take sides. Her mom loved her. I did too. And no matter what happened between Lauren and me, that would never change. I reminded her that both her mom and I had made mistakes, and I didn't want those mistakes to wreck her sense of home. I asked her not to judge either of us too harshly. Through tears, Ava nodded. She said she understood, and that even if it hurt, she needed to know the truth. When we got home, Lauren looked surprised the moment she saw us. Ava's face said it all. She didn't speak. She didn't yell. She just looked at her mom with a mix of betrayal and heartbreak before heading straight to her room. Lauren turned to me, wide-eyed. You told her? I nodded. She has the right to know, I said. You don't get to blow up a family and expect the kid to walk around blindfolded. I suggested Lauren talk to Ava, not right away, but when she was ready. She needed to explain it in her own words once the shock wore off. Then Lauren asked the question I knew was coming. Are you going to divorce me? I told her the truth. I didn't know. I wasn't making any big decisions yet. Not until I saw how things played out. But I was honest. I said things were going to change. Starting that very day. Lauren pleaded with me to listen to her side. She insisted she still loved me, that we were husband and wife, that we'd built a life together. But all I could think about was how casually she'd handed pieces of that life over to another man, week after week, year after year. I looked at her and said, "You didn't just cheat once. You didn't slip. You made a choice. Over 500 times. With the same man. And you think there's something you can say to make that okay?" She flinched. I saw it in her body, like I'd hit her without lifting a finger. "You must think I'm weak," I said. "You must think I'm so desperate to keep this marriage that I'll just accept this. But you didn't think it through, did you? What it would cost us. What it would do to me." Then I told her what hurt the most. Not just the betrayal, but the loss of everything that made us feel close. The hugs, the kisses, the quiet touches. The intimacy. The trust. "That's gone now," I said. "I'll never go to bed with you again. I'll never make love to you again. And the hardest part? I'll miss the little things, the way you'd squeeze my hand, the way you'd rest your head on my chest. All of it." I paused. Then I added, "And just like you, I won't be faithful either. I never even thought about being with another woman before. But now, I don't see why I should hold myself to a standard you've already thrown away." She looked stunned. Like my words had knocked the air out of her lungs. Her knees gave out, and she sank into the couch, her face pale. She had clearly never imagined this side of the fallout. I told her flat out, I wasn't going to pretend anymore. The damage she caused ran too deep. I said I'd be seeing other people, and she could keep seeing Mark if that's what she wanted. But she wouldn't be getting anything else from me. Not affection. Not closeness. Not trust. Right then, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and let the delivery guys in, the ones I'd arranged to remove our old bed. Lauren watched, confused, as they dismantled the king-size frame and brought in the 2 full beds I'd ordered earlier that day. She finally found her voice. "What's going on?" she asked. I turned to her. "I told you. Things are going to change. I'm never sharing a bed with you again. But it's not fair for either of us to move into the guest room. So now we've each got our own." I pointed to the new mattresses. "If you don't like yours, you've got 90 days to exchange it." She blinked. "So we're sleeping in separate beds?" I looked her in the eyes. "Yes," I said. "From now on." I told Lauren it wouldn't be right for either of us to give up our bedroom. We'd shared that space for so long, and now, well, the intimacy was dead. We weren't us anymore, and we both knew it. But it still felt surreal, to be at the point where I had to explain why we couldn't even sleep in the same bed. As the delivery guys carried out the bed we'd shared for years, I felt this heavy mix of grief and bitter regret. Not just over what she'd done, but over who I had married. The woman I thought I knew had betrayed me in a way I couldn't even wrap my head around. The next day, I called Tony. I needed to talk it out again. I told him everything, that Lauren had been sleeping with her boss, Mark Aston, not just once or twice, but regularly. Twice a week. For 3 years. Over 500 times. Just saying the number out loud made me sick. "I feel like a damn fool," I admitted. "I didn't see it. Not even a hint. And now, I don't even know how to look at her without seeing that betrayal." Tony listened, then asked who the guy was. I told him, Mark Aston, her boss. The same man who gave that glowing speech about her the night she got her award. The same guy who looked me in the eye, shook my hand. Tony didn't mince words. "That guy needs to pay," he said. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Oh, I plan on making sure he suffers. Just not with fists, not yet." Tony asked what I planned to do about Lauren. I told him the truth. I wasn't divorcing her until Ava went off to college. I needed to protect her future first. But until then, Lauren was going to live a very different life. I was going to shut her out completely. Let her feel the weight of what she'd done. And if she even thought about filing for divorce early, I'd make sure everyone, her employer, her friends, knew exactly what she'd done. Tony offered to handle Mark himself. I shot that down immediately. No trouble, man. I appreciate it. But if anything's going to happen to that guy, it won't be something that lands you back in prison. He agreed. Said he got it. We wrapped up the call, promising to talk again soon. The weeks that followed were brutal. At home, Lauren kept trying to talk to me. I gave her nothing but one-word answers. She looked frustrated, like she was hoping I'd crack, hoping I'd eventually open up. But I was cold. Distant. Angry. I buried myself in work, stayed at the office late, left the house on weekends. Anything to avoid being in the same room as her. The tension in the house was thick. Ava could feel it too. Every step, every glance, felt like it might spark an explosion. But I was keeping it bottled up, barely. One night, I came home after a long shift. I was exhausted. I showered, dried off, and stepped into my room, now just feet away from the woman I used to love. It was surreal. Sleeping next to Lauren for years, and now, sleeping next to a stranger separated by a few feet of carpet. As I lay down, she spoke softly. "How was your day?" "Good," I muttered. "I know you don't want to talk to me," she said. "But I've been thinking, maybe I could quit my job. We don't need the money. And maybe if I was home more." That was it. That was the trigger. I sat up in bed, my voice sharp. "Do whatever the hell you want. I don't care. Quit. Stay. Doesn't matter to me. Just stop pretending this is about us, because there is no us anymore." Tears filled my eyes as I turned away, laying my head back down. A few minutes later, I heard her crying. Soft, muffled sobs. She pleaded with me to talk, to listen. She said she hated what she'd done, hated how cold we'd become. She said she still loved me, that losing the physical closeness between us was breaking her, and that she didn't know how to fix it. Then she mentioned Ava. "She's hurting too. This tension, it's getting to her. I see it in her face," Lauren said. "Maybe we should try counseling. Not to fix the marriage, necessarily, just to figure out how to live in the same house without tearing each other apart. For Ava's sake." She was right about one thing. Ava was stuck in the middle of a war she didn't start. But that didn't mean I was ready to give Lauren anything. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I sighed, finally acknowledging that Lauren had a point, especially about Ava. Our daughter was struggling, and even though I was buried in my own pain, I couldn't ignore that. After a few moments of silence, I surprised Lauren by agreeing to therapy. "I'll go," I said, "but only for Ava. Not for you. Don't take it as anything else." She looked stunned, and for the first time in weeks, her tears weren't from sorrow. They were from hope. The next evening, Lauren told me she'd found a therapist, a woman named Dr. Winters, and that she had a solo appointment scheduled for the next day. She'd also booked a couples session for the two of us that Friday at 3 p.m. I agreed. Not because I was feeling forgiving, I wasn't, but because I knew dragging out a messy divorce while Ava was still home would only hurt her more. If Lauren and I were going to coexist under one roof, we had to find a way to do it without exploding. When Ava heard the news about the counseling, she lit up for the first time in what felt like forever. Her smile, the one that had been missing for weeks, came back, even just a little. Lauren told me later that Ava was genuinely glad I had agreed to go. That part hurt more than I expected, knowing my daughter needed me to show up like that, just to feel a little peace again. Still, I kept my distance from Lauren. Every night after work, I'd eat dinner alone, avoiding her like a ghost in my own home. But sitting there by myself, I couldn't help but feel the ache of missing Ava, her hugs, her sweet voice calling me Daddy, the way her laughter used to fill the house. She was the only part of my life that hadn't betrayed me. When Lauren came back from her first solo session with Dr. Winters, I found her wiped out, emotionally drained, like she'd been crying for hours. I figured it must have been hard, spilling years of secrets to a stranger. But I couldn't muster any sympathy. Not for her. Not yet. She'd already broken everything that mattered. Later that week, Tony called. He wanted to update me. He told me he still had some old contacts, people who owed him favors, not in cash, but in loyalty. He'd reached out to one of them, explained the situation. They understood immediately, and told him they'd handle it. Said they wanted Mark Aston, Lauren's boss, the man she cheated with, to feel it. Not just physically. They wanted him to remember it for the rest of his life. Tony gave them Mark's name, his workplace, and his number. That was all they needed. I told Tony to be careful, reminded him I didn't want anyone ending up in jail, least of all him. He said he understood and promised to stay out of trouble. But I knew what he meant when he said, "It won't be pretty." Apparently, when Lauren told Mark I'd found out, he was crushed. He loved her, or thought he did. He said being with her made him feel alive again. They considered themselves a couple during those stolen hours. As if that made it any less wrong. In their minds, their weekly hookups weren't hurting anyone. Just two friends, spending time together, believing their spouses wouldn't notice, wouldn't care. A few hours here and there, taken from marriages they thought had grown dull. It gave them a thrill, a second wind. They told themselves it was harmless. That first session with Dr. Winters was tense. She welcomed me in with a professional calm and thanked me for showing up. She mentioned that Lauren had already shared her side earlier in the week. Dr. Winters stressed that honesty was critical in our sessions and assured me that nothing I said would shock her or leave the room. I nodded, still unsure what I even wanted to say. She turned to Lauren and asked her to begin, to explain why she'd wanted us both in therapy. Lauren looked at me, her eyes glassy. "I want to talk to you again. I want to reconnect. I want our family back. I miss our closeness, everything we had, physically and emotionally." She looked like she meant it. Like every word hurt to say. But I stayed quiet, watching her dab at her eyes with a tissue. Then Dr. Winters asked me what I hoped to get out of the sessions. I looked her in the eye and said, "I want to stop hearing the number 500 in my head every damn day." Lauren flinched. Her face tightened. She turned her head away. Dr. Winters blinked, clearly confused. "What's the significance of 500? I turned to Lauren with a bitter look. "Did you not tell her?" Dr. Winters asked me to explain, more clearly this time. I took a breath, sarcasm cutting into my voice like a blade. "That's the number of times my wife had sex with her boss behind my back. Give or take. Twice a week. 3 years. You do the math." Lauren didn't meet my eyes. She just stared down at her hands, like they held all the answers. And that's how the session began. I explained to Dr. Winters that being an accountant, numbers carried weight with me. Patterns, totals, they weren't just abstract figures. They meant something. That's why the number 500 had become a brand in my brain. For the past 3 years, Lauren had slept with Mark more than 500 times. And now, every time I saw or heard that number, on receipts, on TV, even in random conversation, it brought everything crashing back. That number wasn't just math. It was pain. After I let that out, the room went quiet. Heavy silence hung in the air, the kind that fills your chest and makes it hard to breathe. Dr. Winters finally spoke. "Mr. Parker, I understand how much you're hurting. But let's try to express that without weaponizing it, okay?" I nodded, sighing. "You're right. I'm sorry. But I needed to say it. I needed her to understand the scale of what she's done." Lauren, through tears, apologized again. The same words I'd heard so many times now. But for the first time, my fury eased. I leaned back in the chair and let myself exhale. Dr. Winters asked what I hoped to achieve through counseling. I said I wanted to find a way forward. Not to fix our marriage, necessarily, but to figure out how to live without hate poisoning everything. Especially for Ava's sake. She deserved a peaceful home, even if Lauren and I couldn't give her a perfect one. I thank Dr. Winters for letting me speak honestly, for not interrupting, for not judging. And from that day on, something shifted, not everything, but something. In the weeks that followed, I worked on keeping my voice calm. No venom. No outbursts. Just civility. And things at home did get better. Not healed, but manageable. Ava was around more. We went out to eat, caught a couple movies, even spent time with friends like we used to. Lauren and I tried to look normal in public, like any other couple out to dinner. But it was all surface. There was no hand-holding. No stolen kisses. I never let her touch me. Friends started to notice. They'd ask Lauren, "Are you guys okay?" Because for 15 years, our affection had been obvious. And now, it was non-existent. Everyone could see the gap between us. Then, 2 weeks after our first counseling session, something happened. Mark's home was broken into. A few unknown men barged in, beat the hell out of him, and vanished without saying a word. No motive, no message. Just pain left behind. Mark ended up in the hospital. When Lauren heard about it, she was shaken. And she looked at me, really looked, like she knew exactly what I might have done. That night she stood in our bedroom, watching me with wide eyes. "Someone broke into Mark's house," she said. They attacked him. Bad. I didn't look up from my book. Just flipped a page and said, "Wow. That's something." She froze. "That's all you have to say?" I slowly looked up, met her eyes, and gave a dry smile. "Oh, I'm sorry, your lover got roughed up. Should I send him flowers? Maybe we should visit him together, sweetheart." Her face dropped. She turned away, and that was the end of the conversation. Lauren didn't say another word. But I could tell she knew. She knew I had something to do with it. And she also knew that mourning Mark out loud would destroy whatever little progress we'd made. A few days later, I got a text from Tony. Just a single thumbs-up emoji. Nothing else. That was the last I heard from him for a while. As the dust settled, I half expected a detective to show up at my door. To ask questions. To connect the dots between the affair and the attack. But no one came. The police filed it under an open case. And moved on. Months passed. And, just like Tony promised, no loose ends. I started dating again. At first, Lauren would question me when I came home late, asking where I'd been, what I was doing. But after a few times, she caught on. She realized it was none of her business anymore. She stopped asking. I reminded her we were only married on paper now. We were just two people sharing a roof for Ava's sake. That was it. Over time, we found a rhythm. We stayed civil. Family life got a little easier. Lauren finally seemed to grasp the full weight of the damage she'd done, the permanent cracks in something that used to feel unbreakable. I warned her more than once. If she tried to leave me before Ava went to college, I'd tell everyone. Her friends, her family, they'd all know exactly what she did. I'd make sure of it. So she stayed. Still legally my wife. But emotionally? She was alone. She no longer had someone to love her back. No more kisses, no more hugs. No one to wrap their arms around her and make her feel safe. Her marriage had been built around that connection, and now it was gone, destroyed by her own hand. She kept going to therapy. But it didn't help much when she saw me moving on. When she realized I was finding joy with someone else, it hit her hard. Vanity. Selfishness. Stupidity. Those were the things that cost Lauren the man she said she loved. Ava still loved her mom, but she never forgave her. Not for what she did to me. Every time Lauren tried to complain about something I said or did, Ava shut it down. She reminded her mom, gently but firmly, that this was the life she'd chosen when she betrayed her family. After Ava left for college, I came home one afternoon with divorce papers in hand. A year earlier, I'd fantasized about ruining Lauren financially. About dragging her through the mud. But when the time came, I chose a fair split. Over the last 2 years, I'd made peace with everything, not forgiveness, but acceptance. The love I once had for her was gone. Not bruised. Not cracked. Gone. She wasn't surprised by the divorce papers. She didn't argue. She signed them quietly, almost relieved to finally turn the page. She said she'd never cheat again, that she'd learned her lesson. But the truth? That divorce wrecked me in ways I didn't expect. I grieved it, even though I knew it was the right thing. I'd catch myself thinking about the early days, wishing I could rewind it all. Wishing I could love her the way I used to. But the memory of those 500 betrayals, it never left me. We sold the house and split the proceeds. I moved in with Tricia, a dancer 15 years younger than me. We'd been seeing each other for a while, and being with her made me feel alive again. Confident. Happy. For the first time in years I felt peace. Lauren, on the other hand, never stopped hoping we'd find our way back. When she found out I'd remarried, she cried for weeks. Not because I hurt her, but because she finally realized what she'd thrown away. She dated here and there, but nothing ever stuck. Her looks faded. She gained weight. Bitterness crept in where love used to live. That light she had, the one that used to draw me in, it was gone. She and Ava stayed close, though. That bond remained. As for me? My communication with Lauren faded into silence. She would never again feel the love of the man who once worshipped her. And she would carry that pain forever, a scar left by her own choices. Lauren did eventually rebuild some parts of her life. She made sure Ava's college was fully funded. She went back to school herself and became a psychologist, maybe hoping to help others avoid the mistakes she made. She's married now. Happy, I think. But the lessons we learned from what we went through, they stuck. Ours was a love story, once. A beautiful one. But it turned into something else. Something that taught us how even the deepest love can be shattered by betrayal. And that some mistakes can't be undone.